Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new class, Building a Functional Foundation for Character Illustration. So this class is very much a beginner class catered towards those who would like to learn more about character illustration, but who are not sure where exactly to begin. So in this class, we're going to be tackling that exact thing that you're really always probably stressed about, right? How do I get started with all this? Where should I begin? Do I need to care about all these brushes and advanced techniques? What exactly do I need to do? Beginning with today's class, we're all going to be looking at all that kind of stuff and helping you navigate through them one by one. So this is going to be a substantial class, about 15 hours or so. And then this will also be part of a longer series, which we'll be talking about very, very soon. So today we're going to have this, orientation chapter to really help you and myself orientate to and be on the same page essentially about this entire process, what we're going to be talking about, and what kind of expectations we can have. So yeah, without further ado, let's take a look at, the slides. So today there's going to be a little bit more slides, but I think it's pretty necessary to convey all the information that we need to get across, because that's really important, right? The last thing I want is for everyone to be a little bit unsure of whether, their concerns will be addressed by the class. You signed up to the class for X, Y, and Z. Will all these things happen? And so today we'll be answering that. Now, to begin with, today we're going to be talking about myself just a little bit, right? Instructor self-introduction, to tell you guys, why exactly I'm, at least a little bit qualified to be telling you all these. So showing you some of my history of work, commercial projects included, personal projects, and so on, as well as the artworks themselves. So we're going to be talking about characters in this class, right? So characters are something that I really draw a lot, and I'll be able to showcase, well, quite a few of them to you in just a little bit. Now, I think chances are that if you are, looking at this class, you probably already know of me, probably. And so this will be, more of a recap. But either way, I think it's important to give a proper introduction of myself, and that will be what we'll be doing next. Now, after that, we'll be doing also a series overview. So I think what's really important is a big picture. So we're going to be talking about a big picture here. So this class, as you may already saw on the website, the Colossal website, the signature series, is essentially the first class of 5. So the 5 classes combined aim to help you become someone who is fairly proficient at character illustration, of course, with your own hard work included as well. Well, I can't promise, that I can do the hard work for you, but I'll try my very best to give you all the knowledge to help you succeed in that. So this is what the series is all about. And this particular class that you're currently signed up to and looking at, we're going to be tackling the very first and crucial part of it, right, which is building a functional foundation. So that's a big picture. And then within that, we'll be talking about things like basic character drawing, posing and designing and lighting, more on that later, and eventually creating a character illustration. Now, that is in terms of the big picture. And for the class overview, which is this class itself, right? This class itself with its various chapters, as a part of the series, right? This class itself, what we're going to be talking about in terms of lesson goals, right? What do we want to learn from this very first part of the series? As well as some chapter overview, which is going to be a little bit more fine-grained. We're going to be talking about each chapter, what kind of things we're going to be looking at in each chapter. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of today's very important, kind of dry, but very important orientation chapter. So let us proceed to the next slide. So a quick self-introduction. Hey everyone, I'm Guweiz. I'm a professional artist who has been drawing for 11 years. A little more if you add in my doodling. So it's been quite a while since I've been doing this. I'm someone who hasn't really been through a art system per se. Not much at all in the way of structured art education. So I've had to figure out things on my own a lot of the time. Pretty much all the time, with the help of all kinds of resources and inspirations on the internet, of course. And I think you guys might very well be the same. So I think I'm in a pretty good position to kind of share my experience in this aspect. And during this time, right, beyond just doing my personal work, I've also had great opportunities, very, very lucky to have been able to work freelance for, all kinds of names that you might know in the industry, as well as engage in many other collaborations all over the place. So it's been a very fruitful decade for me, and I think it's thus give me some qualification to help you learn about character illustration, which is very much a big part of why I'm able to secure all these jobs and be where I am today. And that is, of course, with probably your support too. So, yeah, I'm sure many of you already know all this, but I think it's important to kind of highlight exactly where I've been. So I've also been able to create 2 art books with the help of 3D Total. These are the 2 books in 2020 and 2023. Alongside being a key contributing writer once again for the very, very wonderful folks at 3D Totals, a great instructional book series, Artist Master Series, Color and Light, and Perspective and Depth. So I'm someone who's pretty used to creating instructional material. How great it is, I'm not sure, but I would say the feedback so far hasn't been too terrible. I think I am experienced in that aspect, so I want to use that experience to really, help me share my knowledge better with you guys, which is why I think this class will be something that you can definitely benefit from. And as I mentioned before, right, with someone like me who really has to figure out things on my own, I feel like I can relate to people who are really just picking up the stylus or pen or tablet on their own and trying to just figure out, how exactly do I do this thing? It seems really complex. How do I approach it? I'm someone who knows that feeling very, very precisely, so I think I'll be able to help you with that as well. And so one of the things that I want to start off with is that, starting to draw can be the hardest part for many aspiring artists because it's easy to draw once, perhaps, right? You're like, oh, I'm feeling it today. I'm going to do it once. But what about tomorrow? Are you going to be able to repeat that the day after, the day after, the day after, and so on, right? So this entire first couple of months, first couple of weeks of starting to draw can be something that has a lot of friction for you. It hasn't really become a habit. You're pretty much uncomfortable with it. You're really buoyed by your initial hype for this thing that you discovered. Like, it's really cool. You want to do it, but there are many things working against you, right? So what I want to do with this class, especially since all of you are here probably for character illustration, is to give you a good start, which I think can really make a good difference. Because not everyone is perfectly poised with a perfect concoction of circumstances to allow them to spend all the time on drawing. So a class like this, I feel like we can make a big difference between frustration and a great first impression, which will help you, keep your momentum going and hopefully reach for the sky. So yeah, this is why we are here today. And hopefully this class is going to be that building block, that keystone on which many of you, as this class is meant for, beginners, there's absolutely no shame in being a beginner. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful period of your journey to be in. And so I think this class is going to be something that will really help you quite a bit, hopefully. And yeah, so to really tell you what this class is exactly going to be, I guess I wrote it here in as simple as I can put it. Simple and clear look at what it takes to illustrate and design characters. And I think simplicity and clarity are super, super important parts of someone who's just starting out, right? Because you can be easily overwhelmed by the sheer number of hundreds of thousands of different courses, all of them very valuable across independent artists or platforms like Colosso. There's just so much to learn from. Where do you start? And this class is intended to be something of a simple and clear look. Simple is a keyword. I genuinely mean it. Simple is a keyword. Not using it just to make you feel comfortable. I really am going to be keeping this class very straightforward, very simple, because I think as beginners, and I very clearly remember the day when I'm struggling because it's such a common shared experience that I really wanted something simple and something clear for me to just follow, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be shallow. It's not shallow. It's not a shallow set of knowledge. There's going to be things that are a little bit complex, but what I want to do is to keep things straightforward and clear for you guys. And overall, 99% simple. So yeah, I hope this is a pretty good idea of what we're looking to do this class. And let's take a look at the next slide. Next slide is going to be a little bit of work history. There's not too much to, really harp on here. I've done a bunch of freelance concept art, freelance illustration. We've done book covers as well. We're able to participate in a live event that was very nerve-wracking. I'm not sure if many of you remember that, which was this one, Drawfest 3. And then I was also able to, do things like contribute to writing some books and my own art books as well. And I've also had quite a few exhibitions so far. Very, very fortunate for all these wonderful partners that I have in Japan. Great shout out to all of them for really supporting someone like me. So yeah, just a very quick brief introduction, and let's take a look at the characters. So this is the first time the actual artwork is being shown in this chapter, and we're about 10 minutes and 30 seconds in, so I'm sure some of you might already be falling asleep, but don't worry, we'll have a lot of drawing and looking at drawings to do in this entire class. So for today, please bear with me as I talk about some of these examples and really highlight to you, what sort of they represent about the character illustration process, right? So if you take a look at these illustrations, right, these are very much character focused compared to, perhaps composition focused, perhaps, concept focused. These are very much character focused, right? And this is the kind of product that I will hope to be able to teach you guys to create at the end of the entire signature series. Series being this class plus 4 other classes. So today we're going to be, as remember in the very first slide, going to be setting up the foundation to create all this kind of stuff here. Now, that's going to take practice, that's going to take knowledge, and a lot of discipline on your own end as well. But I'm going to try to give you all the tools that you need to make this happen. So yeah, now if we take a look at these illustrations here, as you can see, right, we're going to tackle things like maybe a little bit of anatomy, nothing, no like super hardcore diagrams, right? Because once again, this is a beginner class. I want to show you guys what it's like to start learning anatomy, what some functional things we can learn about that, things like proportion, right? How do we balance a character's proportion in terms of placing them in an illustration from a certain angle? We're going to be learning about poses as well, right? All sorts of different things. Designing characters' costumes, right? Designing characters' poses. So all these things are what we're going to be tackling in this overall signature series. And this is sort of my example and my proof to you that at least I can do that on my own, so that I maybe am a little bit qualified to, share some of this with you guys as well. So yeah, hopefully this is going to be something that we'll be looking forward to creating maybe very, very soon. Might be a bit of an exaggeration, but we're definitely aiming towards this. So once again, we're going to be having a slightly more detailed look at a big picture. I know I've yapped on about that already, but I think this is really just such an important part of the class, of this chapter specifically, that I really want to highlight it, because it's easy to... I know many of you probably want to dismiss this chapter and get right next to or rather get on to the meat and potatoes of the class, but I think this is really important because this is the overview of how this signature series is going to deliver you, or rather give you all the tools, right? Deliver to you is not the right way to phrase it. It's going to give you the tools, should you be willing to learn, to set you on the path to creating works like these, right? So this is going to be the signature series. I am annotating this in Google Slides, the slides of which you will also receive at the end of the class, or during the class actually. So yeah, the font writing here is a little bit rough, so bear with me for a bit. So in the very beginning, let me clear the annotations right up for this one. We're going to be talking about character drawing basics. This is going to be this class. This very class, chapter 1 of this class, is an orientation for the whole thing, but this is going to be the class. We're not going to be talking about all these just yet. Not yet, okay? So this particular class, we're going to be very much talking about character drawing basics. Learn the very core of what makes a character drawing. We're going to practice that. We're going to do things that are very much focused around this, and that is going to set us up for the next class, which is pose drawing. Right? Posing characters is obviously something that's very intuitively required, right? If you think about drawing a character, you would pretty much very, very soon think about posing them, right? Because initially, we'll all draw characters like this, right? And then we're like, hey, what if the character can run, right? What if the character can run? Something like this, right? Because going from static to posing is such a key aspect in creating characters that are attractive, that are interesting, that have personality. It's the second class in our series. So pose drawing is next, posing our characters accurately in dynamic ways. Now, after that, we're going to be talking about character design. So we've learned how to draw a very basic character, yes. We've learned how to pose the character in a pretty cool way, yes. But what about design, right? Design makes a huge difference to how a character appears, what kind of personality they, convey to the audience, to yourself as well, right? Do you like this character? Are you actually enjoying drawing this character? If you're feeling like sometimes, I'm not really feeling it, it could be very much an issue of character design, right? Character design is also going to be a whole class that we'll be dedicating part of the series to, because it is very important to learn to create effective and appealing designs consistently being a keyword here, as much as we can, right? Maybe we cannot create the perfect design 10 out of 10 times, but if you can create a perfect design, let's say 2 out of 10 times or 1 out of 10 times, but you can create a pretty damn good design 8 out of 10 times, and maybe a mediocre design 1 out of 10 times, it's pretty much good enough. I would say that's very, very good, actually. So yeah, character design, a key aspect as well. Following that up in the series, we'll be talking about lighting characters, using lighting to, light up characters. So after we've created a character that is in concept, well drawn, right? In concept, well posed, and in concept, well designed. No. Now, after all that, we need to be able to show the character to our audience, right? We can't just be like, oh, I have this character, but the only way I can do it is in this character sheet format, which will get you pretty far. Don't get me wrong. I think just mastering these three is going to be really, really good. But if you want to use it in the context of an illustration, which is our final goal, lighting a character is going to be so important. And that lighting is going to transform and act as a multiplier for this entire segment here. Right? Let me kind of get rid of some of these excessive annotations. So we have prepared all this. This is great. Now, the moment lighting comes in, we'll be able to multiply this 5 times, and then we'll have 5 times the effect. Right? So lighting is such a powerful multiplier that I really want to make sure that the signature series includes lighting as well, and that will be exactly what we're touching on as our 4th class. And now for the finale of the entire signature series, we'll be completing a character illustration. So using all the knowledge we have learned, we'll be guiding you on how to create a character illustration with lighting, with design, with posing, and of course, right, at the same time, maintaining your basic core of what allows you to draw well. So there is the overview and big picture of the class. Now, bear with me, we're just going to be a little bit more for this orientation chapter. We're going to zoom in, right? We're going to zoom in into this, right? Character drawing basics, the class this time. So for this time, once again, this class, 15 chapters or so, about 15 hours. Today we're doing the orientation, a little bit dry, but very soon will be next upcoming, will be constructing fundamental structures of characters. We're going to be taking a very clear look at what it takes to construct a character in almost a literal sense, right? Because as beginners, it's difficult to conceptualize a character as a whole. You're not like thinking about the gesture or the purpose of the composition right off the bat. We're thinking about very basic things like, how do I stack the torso on top of the abdomen, on top of the pelvis, on top of the legs? How do all these parts come together? So that is going to be our very next section, constructing fundamental structures of characters. Within that, I want to do a quick introduction of characters for beginners, right? Very much catered towards you guys who are presumably beginners because you signed up for this class. And this class is, I mean it when I say it, this class is very much targeted towards beginners who are new to drawing. I'm going to be making sure as much as I can that all the information that I provide you will be not dumbed down. Dumbed down is not the right word, right? It will be very well managed in a sense that I don't want to overwhelm you, but I don't want to underwhelm you either. I think I will be able to manage it in such a way that it's absorbable, but it's still engaging for beginners. So that is going to be a purpose of our chapter 2. After which we'll begin the practical parts a little bit more, building a character, showing demonstration, and allowing you to practice as well, right? How do you build a character with all these different parts of the body, parts of the structures of their figure? How do we put them all together? And that is what we're going to be talking about next. Now, with all this in mind, right, this is sort of the stage where we are really just figuring out, getting our hands a bit dirty, getting our feet wet, just getting into it, right? After that, we are going to be working on proportion. So proportion is such an important thing in character illustration because it really gives you all the information that you need about how tall the character is. That conveys a lot of information about their age, what sort of personality perhaps they might have, and all that kind of stuff, right? That opens up room for design way down the road. So proportion is a very big part of character drawing, not only because it allows you to draw characters in a very cool manner, but also to allow you to avoid critical mistakes. So that's why proportion comes in right after these two very basic sections. We're going to be learning about measuring techniques. How do I measure my character? I know, for example, I need this to be relative to this, relative to that, but how do I measure it? Next, we're going to be talking about playing with proportion. After we've learned a basic model that we can, use as our old reliable, how do we adjust that? Because you're not going to be drawing one character forever. You want to draw different characters, you want to try out different things. So playing with proportion, knowing exactly how proportion works is not only going to allow you to draw more characters, right, as I mentioned, but also draw that one particular set of proportions very well, because now you understand what is beyond, right? If I want to make the shoulders a bit wider, what does that mean? If I want to make the legs a bit longer, what does that mean? So all these information is going to be included in this particular chapter, playing with proportion. And then next, we're going to be talking about mistakes to avoid. Once again, as I just mentioned, proportion is something that's pretty sensitive to mistakes. Even I myself, I still struggle with it time to time with, figuring out the exact proportions to use. Sometimes it is difficult. So another chapter pretty much dedicated to making sure you steer clear of some common mistakes that can be easily avoided. Ultimately, it's still going to be a process where we learn by trial of fire. That's just how drawing works in general. You need that knowledge, but as much as possible, we can talk about or preempt certain mistakes that we don't need to make. And then after that, we're going to be talking about the basics of portraiture. So we have a big picture of the character down. All that's good. But drawing the face of a character is really important as well. In character illustration, drawing the face is almost essential, because unless you're planning to draw a character from the back forever, you're going to have to draw their face and portraiture eventually. So portraiture is up next. After we've learned about all these very basic things, we're going to be using key landmarks on the face to help you construct the face, right? For example, nose, eyes, mouth, ears, very eyebrows even. All these sort of very basic landmarks, we'll be using that, which I'm sure you're familiar with just by looking in the mirror, on how to construct a human face, right? So this class will very much be centered around, since I'm the instructor, will be centered around the way I like to draw characters and all that, because that's the only way I can teach you. So yeah, very much we're going to be using the key landmarks in the way that I use them to construct a character's portrait, to be specific. And then after that, we'll be delving a little bit deeper into the facial structure. So facial structure is something that is slightly more advanced, I would say. But I decided and I really wanted to include it in this class because I do not want to overwhelm you with information, but I want to give you some context as to, for example, why when we draw a character from the side view, right? Like, why is one eye big this way? And why is one eye very much, foreshortened and squished into something like this, right? Something very basic like this is, and so much of it has to do with facial structure that I feel like we're very justified in talking about facial structure as well. And next, we're going to be talking about connecting the head. So drawing the head, drawing all the features, using the ears, drawing the ears, right, or drawing all this stuff, that's great. We're going to be able to put together a fairly reasonable looking portrait, but how do we connect the head to this area here, right? We've learned so much about this. How do we connect it? We're going to be talking about areas like the neck, how the spine joins into the skull, and all these things that are somehow left out pretty often, but I think it's really important to learn about. And with all this set of information, we're going to be able to draw a side and 3/4 view practice, because, right, we learned about the front view and all the basics. We're going to also learn about the side view and a 3/4 view, making use of all we've learned during this particular section. And now, after all this, I think I will actually wrap this as sort of a first half of the class, because these are things that I will say will allow you to draw something that will probably impress your friends if they've never drawn before, because now you can do proportion, now you can construct a character fairly believably using the information. You're going to be able to draw a portrait with some understanding of, facial structure, so things are going to look very reasonable. So the second half of this class is sort of building on top of this first half, and we're going to be delving just a little bit deeper into what makes up basic and applicable anatomy, right? We're not going to talk about super advanced stuff. I need to study more on that myself too, to be very honest with you. But we're going to be talking about very applicable and functional anatomy, like what really matters for the most common areas that we sort of encounter, like for example, the torso area, the neck area with your clavicles, how do those work, right? We're going to be also introducing references to begin with, because references are such an important thing in drawing. You cannot believe these are really, really, I cannot emphasize how important references are. We're going to be talking about them right off the bat after all these basic stuff, because that is what you're going to need as well to keep building on your knowledge, to keep expanding, and to keep gaining, little bits of inspiration here and there. And all that good stuff is going to come from using references in a very efficient way. Okay, so this is going to be sort of in the basic part of the class, because we're going to be talking about things that really are a little bit more specific, like drawing the torso, drawing the hips, and drawing the legs, right? And after that, we're going to be doing sort of a full demo, a full exercise after the entire learning process. You could count this as essentially the final part, where I'll be doing a lot of demonstration on the front view, on the side view, and on the back view of drawing a full character, starting from the basic construction, managing the proportion, using portraiture to draw the face and head, whichever direction we need it from, using basic applicable anatomy to make sure our character has reasonably accurate anatomy, like torso, hip, and legs. How are they placed? How do they look from certain angles, right? What are some of the connections that we need to get right? And in this last sort of segment here, section 6, we're going to be drawing all these different views as a demonstration process. And finally, after that, we'll be having our conclusion and review, right? Basically, we're going to talk about what happened in this entire class. We're going to review all the things that we have done. And that's going to be something that I think is a good roundup to, well, it's just a conclusion and a review of everything we've learned, right? Because there's quite a lot of things actually, even though this is a beginner class, and I do promise to keep things simple, but there is a lot that we will be learning, and I want to have a good wrap up and review at the end. So this basically concludes it for our sort of class overview, what you can expect this time. As you can see, let me just, if you're still listening at this point, as you can see, a lot of these elements and the order they are going in is very much ordered in a way to go from the most important to the least. And I put least in parentheses because these are very important, but obviously the most important thing is to introduce you to what are drawing characters, how to build them, very basic things like proportion itself, drawing the face because characters need faces, and then going back to understanding the proportions and basic structure a little bit more, and then finally with a practice, full demonstration, full exercise, and a conclusion. So this is going to be the flow of the class. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of what you can expect from each segment and how I want to keep things structured. And so what is also really important is that after talking about all this technical stuff, I want to give you a final rundown of the class goals. Goals are not for me, right? Goals are for you. So these are the goals I feel like you can take on. Now, of course, you might want to take on a lot more, which is up to you, absolutely. But I feel like these are my goals for you. So firstly, I want you to learn the very basics of what makes a character drawing. I think this is very important because I know when we're beginning, we're able to see everything and say, oh, I want to draw that. Oh, I want to draw that. Oh, I want to draw that as well. And trust me, I still feel like that every day. But for this class, I want you to really focus in on the very basics of what makes a character drawing, really take that information to heart, and then use the basic set of information that we'll give you to help you keep drawing effectively. Effectively is a key word here, because with this information, I feel like you're going to be able to avoid a lot of, meandering paths that are great for mileage, but why not be effective and still have that mileage? So yeah, that's going to be my goal for you. Use this information effectively and practice that. And of course, right, learn some common pitfalls. I'll be sharing this throughout the class. And essentially what this, you can almost, think about this class as an entire process of avoiding common pitfalls, because what we're doing here is to really give you, ideally, a journey that is as much as possible efficient, simple, and very clear to follow. So you have a great time drawing and just have fun and develop your art in a very fun manner. And so, yeah, that's about it for today's chapter. It's been 30 minutes. I can't believe it's been 30 minutes, but it has been. So hopefully today we're able to introduce to you the basic concept of not only, well, not only myself, my drawings, but also the big picture of the series, as well as the class itself, what kind of things I want you to learn. And yeah, hopefully this has been a good first 30 minutes. I know it's a little bit dry, but we have to talk about this because it's so important. But once again, thank you so much for watching this chapter. In the next chapter, we'll be starting on, the meat and potatoes. So please do look forward to that. But for now, thank you and bye-bye.